Culture here. I'm Nifty Mike. We have Malachi and Nick with us today, special guest Nick. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that happened this week today, but we were thinking since we have a new special guest on, we would kind of do a little bit of backgrounds. And also, we haven't really done backgrounds before on the channel, so we figured people can get a little bit more to know about us. So Nick, I'm going to hand it over to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about like what got you into Nifties?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going by Sophisticated Art Speculator on the different NFT projects. So some people may know me by that, but I got into the crypto space a year ago and just traded coins for a long time. But earlier this year, a buddy of mine said you have to get into NFTs, and like many of us, the first place I went was Nifty Gateway and just became instantly addicted with it. So I got in early February, and there was so many steals to be had. I could have bought Lotus Train at $1,000, Beeple for 10K, but I decided to spend my time collecting Gold Weird crystal pops for my first 2 weeks, which I'm still happy with because I still like tripled my money on those. But it's funny when you look back at what you were, doing and what you could have been doing. But I really got in because it was just fun. I was like, oh my God, I can collect all of these different, crystal pops and have the whole collection. And this was back when they were doing limited drops. Do you remember, like, if you clicked in like a second, if you clicked quick enough, you could get a limited drop and you could flip it for like 3 or 5 times. It was like a casino. It was so addicting. And I mean, literally in February, there were certain days on February where I'm not even kidding. I think I saw every single transaction on Nifty Gateway. I was just obsessed. I was watching the feed. I was like seeing every purchase, tracking the prices and the trends and everything like that. So rode up the wave in February and March and made a good amount of money doing that, and then started to like broaden my NFT exposure and just the projects that I was interested in. So early March, I got into Sandbox Land. I just thought it was a really cool project, and so I started to make some purchases over there. And then I jumped into Meebit recently, which I'm having an absolute blast with. And then also did some Zed Run horsing, Zed Run horse racing recently, which is like a total money sink. But it's funny.
I want to ask you about that later.
Yeah, it's like the first time where I've like flipped the switch and I'm like doing it for total like fun and like already wrote the money off as a loss. So I mean, yeah, so I'm all over the place, but loving the space. I think we're still very early and happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I guess I'll go next. Let's see. I've been doing crypto stuff for quite a while. My first exposure to crypto was way back in the Bitcoin below 20 days or $20 days. Unfortunately, I have the same sob story as many other people in crypto, which is I was like, what is this? I'm not going to transfer my hard-earned dollars to $20 digital trickster thing. But as we all have learned, that was probably a mistake, and I lacked the foresight at the time to realize how revolutionary it was. I got into Nifties. My first Nifty was also Gold Weird, amusingly, but it was
awesome.
Space Yacht by Gold Weird, which came out on September 15th, 2020. So I got in relatively early. I mean, which is crazy because it hasn't even been a year. So I got into that, and then I got into the first Beeple drop, which was pretty lucky for me. And then I skipped the second Beeple drop, which was really stupid because I was like, hey, that one's kind of cool. The every day's one is pretty sweet, and it's only $1. Nah, I don't have time to get on
$1. No, I'm busy.
I don't have time to get on the computer at 6, so I just kind of skipped it, which was really stupid. But live and learn. And yeah, so like I think me and Malachi really kind of started really pushing Nifty culture back in maybe I think we came up with the idea in January, and then we really started working on it hard in February. So kind of the same alignment as you. Like February, we were like, man, something is.
You can feel the energy in the air.
Something's different about this. So we were like, hey, let's just start this side project, do a blog, and then see what happens. And it's definitely been crazy, the amount of growth that's been going on with not just the blog, but the YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. So we actually have one of the Nifty founders is even more OG than I am with my September buy. He's he actually was in buying Nifty Gateway stuff in March of 2020.
Wow.
So he's in a lot of the old drops. Like he's got some old packs, some old Trevor Jones pieces, and a lot of other like he's just got a lot of old and cool stuff. He's I think, you know, even beyond Nifty Gateway, he got in on CryptoPunks when it was still really affordable.
Okay.
So
yeah, because I think even like last year they were still pretty affordable, right, for most of last year.
Yeah, so he's kind of the guy who got me and Malachi looking at Nifties. We had a cookout one day at Malachi's house, and we got in kind of just a fun intellectual debate about, you know, the value of digital art. And I was definitely more of a skeptic. I was into crypto at the time, so it's not like I was unfamiliar with crypto space, but just the idea of people making art purchases that were going to shoot up in value, I thought was crazy. But you know
the thing that did it for me, do you remember in January when like GameStop and AMC exploded, and then like all the SPACs were exploding? I was like, if people are buying a ticker and they have no idea what's going on, and they're just buying it to flip money, I'm like, it's not that big of a leap of faith for them to buy a piece of art and think that it could do a similar thing. At least at the end of the day, you can't really look at a ticker. It's not pretty, but a piece of art, you know.
That's true. That's that utility angle. That's what me and Malachi are always like. The utility angle, I think, is what really sells it for me. Like, there's cheesy utility where it's like you get an entry to win some other like Nifty or something, but like the real utility is what I think really interests us. Like even stuff like VFriends, where it's tickets to his conference, or some of the
an expensive doodle, but if you value, you know, the tickets to the conference and it being a network similar to CryptoPunks, then you know the value is definitely there.
Yeah, exactly. Hey Malachi, I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell us your background in this space.
Yeah, I mean, we got into it pretty big around, you know, the 2016, 2017 timeframe. If I had just held on to all this stupid Ethereum I had purchased back then, I'd be on a yacht.
You would be on this call right now.
Yeah, with some apes. And you know, what's really interesting is, you know, we were really lucky with this project, and it's one of those things that like once you see it, you don't unsee it. And like regardless of the future of NFTs, like whether it's Nifty Gateway, whether it's OpenSea, whatever that is, for me, it's one of the, Mark Cuban described it best, and it was after I got into NFTs that he started describing it this way. But when you talk about like the greatest opportunities we've had, you know, catching lightning in a bottle happens once in a generation.
Yep.
For me, personally, lightning in a bottle has happened 3 times. And the first, I was too young with the internet. I was lucky enough that my grandfather bought me a computer, Windows 95, 486. You know, I was on AOL 3.0, you know, on those chat rooms, getting people to send me pictures that aren't necessarily safe for work. Really just doing dumb stuff, getting kicked out of chat rooms with FadeX. And then, you know, I decided to major in computer science, and I met Mike and Rob, and you know, we got to know each other through fraternity and all that type of stuff. But then Bitcoin came around, and Rob was an early adopter, and we were late to the party. But then we finally caught up before it went crazy. And then we bought a bunch, and then we watched it go up, and then we watched it go back down, and we were like, that's fun. And then we sold everything and just went on with our lives. And it wasn't, at that point, it wasn't like life-changing money to just get rid of it anymore. It was just like, oh, this sucks, let's go have beer money. And so we missed that boat. And then Rob started talking about NFTs, or these, you know, digital art, right? Click save as. And we thought it was silly. And then once again, that backyard patio day was right before the Beeple drop. And then it was one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And for me, that was a wake up call. And then in January, you know, February timeframe, my oldest kid started getting older, and you know, he's still young, relatively speaking, but he prefers these digital goods, these digital items. And if I'd give him a comic book, he would prefer to have that comic on his iPad. He would prefer a Fortnite skin to to an action figure. And so when you started adding all of this together in this blending of the digital and non-digital world, to me it was a wake-up call that like these collectibles that we have right now, these are the Hank Aaron baseball cards. These are the things that, like, if Ready Player One becomes half as real as we say it's going to be, these are the items that are going to be the collector's items. These are the things. And then the pandemic and everything else, I FOMO'd. I was like, oh, I missed this Beeple drop. Who's my favorite artist? I'm a huge Kanye West fan. After a couple more of these, I won't shut up. And I'll say that Kanye West is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And I'm not wrong. But I decided, hey, I can't get this digital art that I love. Which artists do I love? And I actually bought this Takashi Murakami print, and it's a signed print. And I bought it from their gallery, and it was like this thing that just released this thing in me, where that was my realization that, like, hey, okay, I have this fun, like this non-digital item that I love so much, and now I have this entry point. And so from there, I hopped into NFTs and started buying left and right on Nifty Gateway, making a bunch of mistakes, making non-mistakes, watching your first videos, listening to you when you were really active in the Discord chats about some of the, hey, if you buy X and Y and Z, it's still going to be worth less than alpha down the road. And so like that started changing my strategy. But once I got it, once I saw it, I started thinking, like, this is the intersection of digital and non-digital. And so how do we, when we start looking at Rarible, so I used to be an artist and a doodler. So I went on Rarible and I started minting this trash art. And I minted this. It was a pretty cool piece. I'll actually send you one if you're interested. I'll send the first 5 people to comment either now or after the chat that want one when gas prices are cheap. But it was actually the Wall Street Bets avatar holding a Robin Hood feather, and it was on fire. And I actually,
that's cool.
Yeah, and I sent one to Mark Cuban, and we're all in Texas, and Mark, and so I sent one to Mark Cuban, and then Mike and I on the side were like, this is going to be huge. Like, let's create this website, Nifty Culture. All right, hey, send us an email to admin@nftculture.com, and we'll get you set up. It might be a few days. I'm gonna wait for gas prices to be cheap, but I promise we'll get you one. Yeah, same thing. You guys got to email admin@nftculture.com. I don't know your usernames and emails and stuff, but the first 5, and actually subscribe, please, like us. That'll help us. That'll help the channel. Sorry, I don't mean to be shilling our channel where we have users while I'm throwing away NFTs. But what was really cool is we gave Mark Cuban one. If you actually were to go look at Mark Cuban's Rarible, now everyone figured it out. I was one of the first 15 that realized, hey, I could gift one. And I was like, do I give Lindsay Lohan one? Because that was when she was all about NFTs, and Soulja Boy's talking about Soulja Coin. And on the side, Mike and I are like, this is going to be huge. And so for us, we thought with our partners that we pulled in, John, who's going to be hopping in later, he's like this DeFi nerd that knows everything about DeFi. And then Rob got us into this. So the 4 of us started that, and we pulled in PO because he's just amazing at interviews and everything else. So long story short, we get Mark Cuban, and he's like, yeah, like, hey, I'll answer your questions. And so now we're asking Mark Cuban questions, and then Gary Vee hops in, and you just see this momentum. And I think like over the last few weeks, we've seen a month or so, we forget that Foundation's only 100 days old. Like it feels like a generation has happened in this space with the gamification, the burns, the resentment from the burns, and like all this stuff is just moving so quickly. But what is exciting for me is that like NFTs are here to stay. And what's really cool, Nick, is that you and I were chatting earlier, and I appreciate your insights, because after watching your videos, I stopped making as many mistakes. I still make mistakes, but you've liquidated a part of your Nifty Gateway collection because you're an opportunist to invest in ETH and Bitcoin, but you're also testing out other spaces. And I think you were saying, the OG, the blue chips, like when they do produce art, you're going to come back, but it's not just one marketplace. We love all the marketplaces, but we need to embrace that. So first off, just thank you for coming on today. And
yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. So it's awesome. So that was a long diatribe. Where do you want to take it?
Well, let's start out with the painful part first, which is before we dive into the fun stuff. I just want to issue a retraction. Yesterday and in a couple days before, I've been talking about POWNifty.com. It's a proof of work Nifty. It's a really interesting project. I mistakenly stated that you can mint them for free. You just pay gas price. That definitely was wrong. You have to pay a minting fee plus gas price. Of course, me being a bonehead, I told Malachi to go mint one, so he mints one, and then later we're looking back through his transaction history in MetaMask, and he's like, "Oh, that was $500 for that because it has a demand curve." So we ended up splitting that. I mean, it was 0.18 ETH. I should quote prices in ETH, not in dollars, but
yeah, it's
0.18
cheap
ETH
then,
is
right?
definitely. Well, no, then that makes it hurt too, because that's you got a number in this first decimal column, so that's never fun. So yeah, so just any listener who's listening to this and heard me say that POW Nifty has only gas fee, it's free but gas fee, that was a mistake. There is a fee. Be careful when you mint it. The fee should, in theory, go up and down. So you might be able to get one for cheaper than about 0.18, but right now it's at 0.18, so it is kind of expensive. I mean, the project is still cool, and I don't want it to like eliminate people's interest in the project. It's not as cool as if it had been purely just gas prices. So anyways, that's my retraction. Now that I've officially retracted my
real
error.
quick, I do want to say that I think it looks cool and I like it, but I do think that it's a little bit and someone on Twitter in the comments was quick to point this out, and we missed part of it, but we caught it quick, and those gas fees are insane. So we hope that y'all, didn't make a purchase of this based on our advice and spend a bunch of gas prices. But we want to call it when we get it right, and we want to call it when we get it wrong. That's the most important thing for us. And we got it partially wrong. We still think it's a cool project. I'm glad that we own one. But if once again, taking the sophisticated art speculator mindset, if I could have invested $500 elsewhere, I'd have rather kept that ETH. So there's that. So real quick. We do have our DeFi / everything expert popping on. So let's pull him on. It's been a couple weeks.
What's up,
Hey,
fellas?
John, what's going on?
Hey, John.
Oh man, just licking my wounds after the market correction we had. So I'm back here.
I got a little bit of a stinger today too.
I'm back in a better headspace.
But I flipped some sandbox land. So like in my head, I was like, okay, that offset like 30% of my losses today, so I didn't lose as much.
Yeah, I was telling Mal before I came on, man, I got caught in the big drawdown. I was one of the unfortunate SOBs that was a little bit over leveraged on something I had some strong convictions in, and I got caught, and so I've been in a hole that I'm just now crawling out of.
The markets are weird right now. I'm a big MACD cross guy, and Bitcoin was setting up for this great MACD cross. I just put all my chips back in like 2 nights ago, and 10% down. It's chop season, but I think chop season's great for NFTs.
Yeah,
we were talking about this earlier.
If you're like an LP provider right now and you're in any asset against USD right now, I mean, it's beautiful. I just saw a tweet today that if you're an LP on Uniswap V3 and you're consolidating your liquidity, the rewards are incredible right now. I mean, serious.
I was wondering about that.
Say that again, Billard.
I was wondering because I have some V2 tokens, and it said that I would be but you get screwed if you're the first one. It said like, do you want to upgrade these to V3? But then it was like, you're going to be the first person to provide liquidity on this pool on V3, which I thought was sweet because my pool tokens are ETH BAT, which is kind of a popular utilicoin. So I was like, oh, sweet, I can be providing all the liquidity on ETH BAT pair, which would be awesome. And I'm sure it would be lucrative. But then it was like, you're going to have to pay extra fees because you're the one who sets up the pool. So I'm wondering if it's kind of like a gamified system where people are waiting for some other bloke to set up the pool or not.
Yeah. Your ETH BAT, is that the pool you said you were, or USD BAT?
ETH BAT.
ETH BAT. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know if necessarily they're waiting for some other person, or it's just so new that really the only people that are, because V3 you have to pay to move your position around, and right. So if you're in a particular liquidity range, and it goes outside of that range, you're not making any fees. And so right now you're seeing stuff like Charm Finance and others that are managing this for you. You give them your money and they'll manage the movement inside the pool. But you know, for Bat ETH, I think that's obscure enough, even though I know you're a big Bat fan, that most people that are Bat owners probably aren't
flipping in and out right now.
Yeah, they're just
versus
not
like Ethereum and like Bitcoin,
DeFi.
people are going in and out, or
yeah. So like with ETH USD, I mean, you know, that pool is already super deep. There's tons of concentrated liquidity because, you know, you're bound to run it at least a couple hundred degenerates that, you know, they got a lot of money and they can manage the pool. So yeah, I don't think it's any sort of gamification, Mike. I just think that you're probably, you know, looking at it before most others for that particular LP. Other people are probably sitting in version 2 because it's comfortable and safe.
Is there going to be a time where you're going to be forced out of version 2, or how? Like, what's the deal there?
I don't think so, but I think what's going to happen is it's going to come to a point where no trade is going to go through your pool, so it's going to be worthless to be in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you know, the efficiency and the depth is just going to be better on V3. So you know, naturally everybody will move. So
yeah, that's kind of weird.
Say, you know what happened with your Bitcoin position was, I was telling my buddy I was in a hole until a couple days ago, licking my wounds, and then I crawled out of the hole and I relonged. And I told him I relonged, and that's when the market started taking off again. He's like, dude, stop with the leverage. You didn't learn.
Well, that's so. Before we get to Dieter's question, I wanted to ask you, like, do you think that one of the gentlemen that's been on this stream before and is a big Beeple fan, you know, he speculates that Ethereum could drop back down to 1,600 before it stabilizes, or, you know, it could go back up to 3,000. I'm curious, you know, obviously no financial advice. Do you think we go back down to 1,600, or do we go back to, and I'll ask everyone, do we go back above, 3,300?
So my thought is long-term, Ethereum's great. I'm still wildly bullish on it. But this latest drawdown was so aggressive, much more. I mean, I set my liquidation points well below what I thought would be the next consolidation range on this particular asset. I don't want to shill it, but and the fact that it actually V'd all the way down and picked me up and then went up, that to me says most of the money that's in the market right now, like if you go pull up CoinGecko and you look at overall cap, I think it's like 1.7 trillion right now. I haven't looked in a while, but I think that's right. That says to me that a lot of that is leverage. When we went all the way up to 2.7, like there's not real money there. That's people, like the current market is just leveraged to the gills. And so you saw it swing all the way down. And so I think there's still a ton of leverage in the market. And when you have that much leverage and you're trying to figure out how much real value is there, you kind of have to go back to square one and ask yourself the fundamental question is how much value is actually in each of these chains. And I'm not talking about leverage value. I'm talking about hard dollars that aren't borrowed. So when you ask that question, where do I think it could drop down from here? Man, I think it could, we're still looking at a $300 billion market for ETH. And as great as ETH is right now, is it worth $300 billion? I have to ask myself, I don't know. This latest drawdown made me question short-term valuations. So I don't know, man. Yeah, I could see this swing. I think there's more than 50% leverage left in this market. I really do. So we could clear it.
Well,
let me take the counterpoint.
Okay.
I think there's two things working on, and those are all super valid points, and everybody should be concerned about the leverage thing. It's so weird. Like, it's like some people are like, well, it's efficient markets, but then other people are like, no, it's people who are making insanely bad trades because they don't understand the risk that they're getting into. And efficient markets, of course, the cool thing about those is if you make an extremely bad trade, not understanding the risk, the market is going to eat you alive. So there is that going for us. But some counterpoints that I have is the biggest one for me is I think ETH has established itself as a coin that has utility, and it has legitimate utility in a lot of people's minds. And one of the things that I feel really got at that utility is this whole Nifty thing. Like, if you have no respect for Nifty, you should have respect for Nifty for one reason, because we have all these marketplaces now with extremely high volume that people are making the transactions in ETH, meaning their brains, like, the number one thing that you have to do in order to supplant the dollar is you have to have people's brains change to be pricing things in ETH instead of in dollars.
Redenomination, yeah.
So Nifties have, I think, really pushed that frontier way forward.
Well, I couldn't agree more with that, because and Nick, I shot you a message in the chat, but I couldn't agree more, because like now everyone is thinking about the fact that like Nifty gateways predominantly in fiat currency. Like a lot of the calculations that people are doing is like, oh, there's a lot of value where like my Ethereum's really cheap. Let's get rid of some of that fiat value so that we can go buy ETH. And there's a lot of Nifties on Nifty Gateway that are going to OpenSea to sell directly to ETH. There's a lot of people that are selling. I can't believe that today Uniswap went for $1,500. By Slime Sunday, Uniswap went for $1,500. That should be criminal. Like, I am not okay with that. And because I had some global offers out and I didn't get them, like that's completely mind-boggling to me that like we can have that type of stuff going on. And so like the fact that people are starting to think of value in terms of ETH, and simultaneously on the marketplaces that we can buy from, the fact that you can buy this piece, which in my opinion is a blue chip piece. We can debate it all we want, but in my opinion, I'm just a huge Slime Sunday fan. The fact that this piece went for $1,500, and the fact that someone likely saw the value of getting that money into Ethereum is huge, is really interesting. And
why are they selling it to go into Ethereum? Because they just got hosed by 10% over the past 45 minutes.
I don't know who it was. Maybe it was someone paying off a credit card. But
for sure, that's the thing, is everything's so tied in interesting ways, right?
Well, yeah, that goes back to what I was telling you earlier. I mean, you have all these leverage positions and they have to close. It's forced. They got to cover. So,
So credit card, the leveraged position in this instance. I wasn't thinking about it in that context, but that's a really good point when you start thinking about the fact that I think one of the gentlemen that was on the podcast or the stream with PO, Sergito and Sven, he picked up that Lotus incredibly cheap. We've seen other cats going for as low as $2,000 from Mad Dog Jones. We're seeing other pieces that we never thought would ever floor the way they have going and expensive. And this goes back to Nick. We were talking about this before. We talked about the fact that the bots and Nifty Gateway and all that's doing is siphoning money away from the platform, which is 100% accurate. But we're also talking about a bunch of people who used a bunch of their own form of leverage and credit cards to buy a number of pieces, and they still have to pay those credit cards off. And so,
definitely.
I think in 60 days, I think the health of Nifty Gateway rebounds once people pay off a little bit of that credit card debt and can come back.
Yeah, and I think people also got double whammied in the sense of, when you saw Ethereum really start to take off earlier this month above $2,500, that created a lot of selling pressure because people are trying to get in there and then ride the wave. And then conversely, when it craters from 4,000 down to 2,500 and wipes out a lot of this crypto liquidity, that also hurts NFTs as well in a big way. So we got, double whammy in a sense. And then what the other big thing is that there's so many NFT projects coming out that are diluting the market, and then also are taking time and attention away, because there has to be like a finite amount of market cap for NFTs, and even if it's growing, every new project or every new art piece is going to dilute the previous ones, and so there's that constant sloshing around of money, and when you layer that on top of like Ethereum's huge run up and crash, it kind of makes sense, this crazy price action that that we've been seeing. But I personally believe that the scenario that we're probably about to go into, there's two scenarios in crypto. One is that we're just slow grind down, bear market for like the next year or what have you. I don't really subscribe to that because if you look at growth tech, it's almost preceded the moves that we've seen in crypto. So growth tech had this huge run up in the summer of last year and into the fall, and kind of popped in December and January and corrected down in a massive way, and like 50%. Crypto's made the similar blow off top and then correction down. So I think that we're going to be in a chop zone for probably a pretty long time, and that's actually great for NFTs, because when people stop speculating on the coins and look at them more as money instead of appreciating assets, then they want to trade that money for appreciating assets. And if none of the coins are appreciating, what's the next biggest thing out there? And that's either farming, like DeFi, or so that's probably going to blow up, and or NFTs. And if you look at DeFi, farming, and NFTs, they both blew up when Ethereum was chopping really hard in February and into March of this year after it had that big run up. So, it's hard to predict the future, but and it's interesting because I was looking at Crypto Art Pulse and looking at some of the pricing on Mad Dog Jones, and you definitely see that there's been a rebound, like off the bottom. Like Cat's dropped all the way down to 2,500. It looks like it's back up to like 3,500 now. So it'll be really, I think the next 2 weeks, if we don't have more meltdowns in the crypto space, I think that we could potentially see some NFT projects really start to take off.
So let me throw some quick comments on some stuff that Nick brought up. One interesting thing I was reading in Wall Street Journal is that when the interest rate, there's like a pivot point in investors' mentality at not in interest rate, but at inflation rate. When the inflation rate rises above 4%, apparently, like, there's this investor mentality on Wall Street where inflation is good for growth stocks up until a certain point. At a certain point, inflation becomes bad for growth stocks and good for value stocks. And so the general sentiment of the market is that pivot point is 4%. The last inflation numbers we got from the Fed prior to the one this morning was like 4.6% on a year-over-year basis, which people attribute to base effect, which is just Fed blowing smoke. But it was 4.6%. So we crossed over that point where investor sentiment becomes, I want to get in value stocks instead of growth stocks. And to me, that big crash of crypto, that kind of aligned, although there was a lot of market manipulation going on. But to me, what that was saying is that my takeaway from that is that your point about crypto following growth stocks, I feel, was proven by the fact that crypto followed growth stocks down at this critical pivot point of 4% inflation. To me, like, my speculation is that everybody should know I don't have a degree in this stuff. This is all personal opinion, by the way. I do a lot of research, but I don't have a degree, I'm not a scientist in this particular field. So my personal opinion is, until we get more solid inflation numbers from the Fed, the current market trend and the current sentiment that's going to be the prevailing sentiment of the market is that growth stocks are icky, to use a horribly non-technical term. So I think, like you said, where we're going to kind of be stagnating for a little while in crypto and possibly Nifty's too to some degree, I think that makes perfect sense. What I'm watching for to see if things change is if the Fed, who's been claiming that inflation is transitory, if the upcoming month's numbers actually do show that it's transitory, I think we start, that's the point where everybody will start to pile back into growth, including crypto. I think if the upcoming numbers, like in June, are showing that the Fed's transitory claim is smoke, which you could make a pretty good case that it is, then I think that will signal that we're going to be kind of in a continued bear market.
And look what's taken off again. GameStop, AMC, they did that in January. And then we had NFTs blow up. And then we had crypto take off again. So it'd be really interesting to see if that cycle repeats itself. It'll definitely help all of our bags, that's for sure.
True.
And Ethereum's in a free fall since we started this today. So,
I know. Literally, I don't know if you noticed over here, but I'm on my ledger. I'm like,
Yeah,
sell
no,
everything,
no.
sell everything.
I'm watching it like, oh man, I still have my ape.
Hey, one other piece of commentary you threw out about how, like, your point about dilution. I think that's a really important point for particularly our viewers and listeners to keep in mind. So a textbook case of the effects of dilution, in this case, it's a artist diluting their own things, is if you look at the floor prices of Beeple's 2020 collection drop, not the 2021 collection, but the 2020 drop, which consists of Bull Run, Into the Ether, and Infected. They were solidly 70K pieces and up prior to that spring 2021 drop. They are now pretty much, 30 to 35K pieces. So he basically
he was only doing one of ones for months.
That's right. And so now he actually did actual limited edition, like full editions, and he did 100 unit editions. So he diluted the space by, if you base it on the prices, he basically doubled the number of editions out there. And so, like,
and
you were
one of
saying,
ones don't dilute as much as opens or limited dilute each other.
But Villery, I mean, the important point is that in terms of Ether, I mean, what are an ETH? What did the market do? I mean, obviously the price of ETH came down. So is that why it's half the price, or is the number of ETH that they're being priced at actually dropping? That's the important metric in my mind.
So Nifty Gateway is, I mean, the thing about Beeple is 99% of his pieces are in a USD denominated marketplace.
Okay.
You can sell them on OpenSea, but that's a niche thing to do. You really can consider it a USD priced asset. And Morocho, one of the guys on the Nifty Gateway Discord, who we chat with a lot about stats and stuff, he did that statistical analysis where he showed no correlation between the increase or decrease in Ether price and Nifty Gateway prices. Granted, that was during a particular phase of the market, and so it might not translate to other phases. But I would say for Nifty Gateway pricing, you can kind of consider it independent of ETH to a large degree.
I want to chime in here because this is important. I don't, and I'm a huge fan of Morocho, and I want to have him and Sophisticated on some.
Yeah, I love Morocho. We chatted a lot back in the up days.
And before TJ Miller killed it for everybody.
Buy anything and it'll 3x in 2 weeks. Felt like a genius back then.
Yeah, no, we all were, right? It's like the market during COVID. But I'm curious to see if there's lagging indicators related to. So does the fiat currency of Nifty Gateway just take a week or two to catch up, right? So we're seeing, and is it going to be lagging again? So I'm really curious to see, because some of those Beeple prices have been falling on the 2021 spring collection, and we're seeing those other things. So the analysis may be point to point, but then we have to think about those lagging indicators because and we were talking about this before the stream as well. Like, we want a stable market, like a flat market is really, really good for NFTs. And this kind of goes back to, I want to answer, there's a couple questions. First, Swag's question, but we can get to that in a second. But if Ethereum is flat for a long period of time, people are going to start placing bets. And Nick, you can say that much better and more eloquently than I did. But when we see these wild movements, that's where we're starting to see those lagging things. Where if I think ETH is going to rebound really quickly, I may not fire sale my Beeple because I don't want to. So if I believe in my heart that over the next 6 months, my Beeple will be within, let's say 20% higher or 20% lower than it is right now. But I believe ETH, if when ETH touched 2,000, if I think in the next 2 to 6 months, it could be closer to 4,000 again, or even if it loses an additional 25%, there's still that value there. Those are the considerations that people to make. So when Ethereum was doing these wild swings, I think people are hesitant. And then, I think that's having a big input. So Nick, I'm curious if you could provide a little bit more color on that. And then maybe we could answer this question on, moving off Nifty Gateway.
Yeah, great. So I mean, I think personally that the thing that we like have to consider and isn't talked about so much, because everyone thinks, okay, all art is non-fungible tokens, NFTs, right? In reality, an open edition, I would argue, is a fungible token. And the reason is because outside of the one edition, they're all pretty much the same. I mean, some people can say they were like the first or the last, right? But you got to think of a mentality of, if Ethereum's swinging up and down, and I have an edition of 500, right? And I think that price could potentially drop off. If I'm being selfish and trying to make money or trying to preserve wealth, I can sell and know that I'm always going to be able to buy that piece back. Even if it goes up, I'm still going to be able to buy that piece back. And if it goes down, I'm going to be able to get a better deal. That's a huge contrast to a 1 out of 1. Because if I sell a 1 out of 1, I may never be able to get that piece back again. If I sell to a collector who never wants to sell that again, or if it's a 1 out of 1 and I come back to that person, they could charge me, through the roof for it. So the mentality, the FOMO, the not wanting to get rid of something that's like a 1 out of 1 is way different than an open edition. I'd argue that an open edition is more like a stock. You want to sell it when it appreciates in value. If you think it's very toppy, like I had some good sales. I got rid of a Deja Vu at like 20K. Now I could buy it back at 6K, right? But if that was one of the 1 out of 1 Mad Dog Jones pieces, I would have been much more hesitant to make that decision, because I could have sold it to someone that locks that away in a vault and I'll never see it again. So I think that in all NFT projects are like different. Like, for example, like a Meebit, I start to feel that FOMO, because if I sell a certain Meebit, like there's one that I really like, I may never get that back again. Like it may be gone forever from me.
So let me I want to clarify here, and sorry to interrupt you. When you think of open editions and open editions have existed on other marketplaces, and Duncan and team have said that they created the functionality of open editions for POC early on. So the argument you're making is that even though there's 10 to 12,000, I don't know Meebits that well, but there's each one of those is unique, even though there's a lot of them, versus a Bill Eilish that's, and I'm a fan of his art. I don't want anyone to think otherwise, but the 237 or the 1,000 that exist, because those are exactly the same. Is there a difference between a Meebit, a CryptoPunk, a Bored Ape Yacht Club, and an open edition on Nifty Gateway?
Yeah, and I think that there's a massive difference. For example, you got into Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? You bought 2 or 3. Everyone has the one that's the keeper. That one is the keeper. That they want that to be their personality, and they're probably willing to flip the other 2, cover the costs, or make some profit. It's the same with like the Meebit. I sold one of my Meebits that I loved at the top, and I want it back. And I've been looking at the price, and the guy's trying to flip it for like triple, and I'm just staring at it. But like Bored Ape Yacht Club is the same thing. If you sell that one that you have behind you, there's a chance you can never get it back again. Whereas if I know that there's a 500 edition of something, there's so much liquidity out there, I'll be able to buy one of those, even if I have to come back in for a 30%, premium. So it really changes up the dynamic. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you don't want to buy an open edition, or that open editions are different. Like, you can look at Meebits and say there's 20,000. If there's an open edition of something and there's 20,000 of them, I'm not saying one or the other should be valued more or less because there's, multiples of them. I think that the argument just is that when there's 500 identical things, it gives people the freedom to move in and out of it quicker or more easily. And so then you just have to factor that in. It's a more liquid market. Exactly. Yep. So if you're like, hey, I bought this NFT, this open edition, Mad Dog Jones, and it 5Xs, okay, I can sell it, make 5X profit. Maybe it keeps going up. I could buy back in if I wanted to. But if it goes down, then I've captured that profit and I own the same thing again, And of course that changes if you own the #1 edition, but other than that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I've been referring to kind of like those open edition series of the blue chip artists as kind of like the commodity edition. And I think this kind of thought process really reinforces that. Like, it's a commodity because it has that liquidity, and that liquidity is what makes that piece special from all the other. Like Pac, he's got mostly very, very small editions, except for Cube, which is a massive edition.
500 or something.
Yeah, so that liquidity on that thing, I think it's like 5,000. It's really high. I don't know why the price is so high with the amount of numbers in that edition. But in any case, I think the point is valid. Like, a cube is a cube is a cube. There's many of them.
If you own the
and
220th edition versus the 320th edition, there's no real difference.
It truly is. I mean, it's a fungible, non-fungible token.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
And I don't even know how much
it's a print. Like that's the way I think of it is like, so to use the Takashi analogy, right? So Takashi and a lot of the more famous artists will do prints, like they'll do 1 of 300. And so when you think of what we're trying to accomplish, like what people collect, like I know that there's only going to be 300 of these and like the price point of that. And so like what's really interesting is like the open editions. I think that if the nifty creators would think of the limited scarcity as like, I would rather someone say, I'm going to do a drawing of 1 of 300 than an open edition, because you may get lucky. And right now we're in the winter, hypothetically, where you might get a 1 of 17, but is the sentiment of that really rare? The reason I'm pulling this piece up is I actually, Kaneda, who I'm a huge fan of, is an artist that we actually interacted with early on right when he was coming into the NFT.
That's a cool piece.
It is awesome. And he's on Abstract, which isn't ETH based, and he's on Foundation. And when we actually commissioned him for this piece because I'm a huge Kanye West fan. And like, for me, this is a 1 of 1. Like this is something that this person was in the New York Times, LA Times, doing the Grammy stuff, has done stuff with Adele, and like is doing a deconstructed David right now. And when you think of like these cool pieces, for me, it's like I love a lot of the art that I've collected on, and this I think is a transition point to answer this question, is I love a lot of the art on Nifty Gateway. Like Xcopy is awesome. Ferocious, I'm a huge fan of, but I'm one of 700 owners. I'm one of 4,000 owners of, faces, but like I'm 1 of 1 on this piece. And
yeah.
Like and it'll pop up in my mural in the background, and it's like for me, like Kanye resonated with me early and like has stuck with me, and so when I start to think about these pieces, it leads us into these deals, the Nifty Gateway or OpenSea, and so like I'm curious to say, and think about like what do the other marketplaces start having more value, and John, I know you've been somewhat of a not a skeptic on Nifty Gateway, but you've been a more of a purist. So I'm curious, like, what are the type of NFTs for you that you'd be excited about? Would you be more likely to collect 1 of 1 on a different platform? Or I know you were early in the Aave Gache, or is just DeFi and like the technology more in your space, or could there be some NFT that's on some marketplace that just gets you really excited?
Yeah, I mean, Meebits, I mean, everything you said resonated. I mean, Meebits, CryptoPunks, anything that's 1 of 1 that, you can associate or see a piece of your personality in. That's really, for me, what I would spend money on if it wasn't, ridiculously overpriced this time. For me, anyway. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's the market's valuing at what they think the value is, but it's out of my comfort zone to buy a CryptoPunk at, whatever it is right now. I think the floor is 16 ETH right now for a CryptoPunk.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, we were trying to help someone place some bids, and yeah, I think, but we talked about it yesterday, and we're super excited that you're back. The CryptoPunks are headed in two directions, and what was interesting is some of the things that Nick was saying about the fungible, non-fungible aspect is like the rare CryptoPunks are becoming increased, like parabolic in price.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Vee just spent $700,000 on one,
mm-hmm.
and then we're also seeing the floor drop on a lot of the more common ones. And so you think about that and how that relates to open editions and everything. That's interesting. I'm going to take a moment.
I saw a real quick piece about you talking about the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And for me, when I was looking at that, I thought the idea of less traits or more traits, that was, and having, that determined value, that didn't really resonate with me. I did exactly what you did when I was looking at it. I scrolled through and found the one I thought was cool and was going to buy it. And I really didn't care what, how many traits it had or how many traits it didn't have. It didn't really matter. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I bought the one that I thought was the coolest, and it was middle of the pack. Like that was why I picked it up, and I picked up multiple, and I was lucky enough that like one paid off the other, and so now I have an ape that I'm part of a community, and I'm going to keep that one. I don't care that it's like laser beam, like psychedelic DMT trip, like Caesar. Like that, I mean, that's a cool looking piece. But for me, like for whatever reason, like the orange sushi dead eyes, like just really resonated with me. And like that's a piece like and granted, I have a price, like I could sell it. But it would probably be
and that's what Swagtrocity literally said. People seem to love to buy pieces that they can make their profile picture, to be honest. And I completely agree with that, because the same exact thing, it happened in the Meebit space too, because there's this like rarity factor. And there's random combinations of the outfit that they can have, but there's some super rare things that are just straight ugly. You know what I mean? Like they're super rare, but they're ugly. And I've been trending towards like, I want the thing that looks cool. Same with like Bored Ape Yacht Club. I want to buy the one that like feels like me, or like visually I like. And I feel like that's a good buying thought process, because if you like something visually, there's probably a pretty good chance that someone else is going to like it visually.
And Nick, what you said about earlier about the liquidity of the markets, I mean, totally drives price and value and how you value the asset. But into the ether, for example, I think that was, how many of those were there, Mike? There were 700 of those. Is that right?
No, there's that one. I think there's around 200.
Oh, okay. It's way less. Okay. Yeah, I think natural price discovery happens much easier with there's more liquidity, and so that because there's 200 of them, people will be moving in and out for a while, but it's going to come to a point where I think it's just going to all the weak hands, paper hands will be out, and it's just going to rise and rise and rise. And I'm just hoping that the market continues to tank a little bit, and the NFTs continue to drop a little bit, and I've got my eye on there. When it gets to a price where I think it's
and I think that's a huge point, to be honest, is that like there's so many people out there that got into the NFT space, and there's that one that got away from them, So for someone, it may be a Beeple piece. For me, like I have always wanted to get my hands on a dead ramen. If that thing, comes across for, $8,000, I'm probably going to throw, money at that. I think that Sergito, right, bought one for $9,000 or something.
We had a huge blow up on the channel 2 days ago when I was talking about dead ramen. We had a survey of what's your favorite top 3 pieces that you would buy for anything less than $100,000. And for me, I agree with you. Dead ramen is my number one. And I was like, it's $30,000. And then Malachi is like, no, bro, it's $9,000. And I was like, oh my God, because I had just spent $4,000 on a Cats, because I really wanted Cats, which I'm totally happy. I just wanted a Mad Dog Jones piece. I like all of them. Ramen's my first favorite, and Cats is my second favorite. So I was like, well, I'm getting my first favorite one for $3,800. It's totally fine. But if I had known that a week or two later that dead ramen was going to go for $10,000 or $9,000, then I would have absolutely stepped up to do that. And so I was so disturbed on this stream by that news. It's just crazy. What's weird though is the floor has bounced back to 37,000 on this thing. So it's like a mystery. I just can't wrap my head around why those exchanges happen.
Well, as you said earlier, probably some people were getting wrecked on the crypto markets or just lost all faith and had to dump out. But then weak hands to strong hands.
And then you have to contend with obviously people that, in these multiple edition items that start buying them up to actually control the market price, set the floor. So, every once in a while you see, an actual holder need to sell, and, a guy that's got 8 copies of it says, oop, I've got that. He picks it back up and the floor bounces right back up to wherever it was before.
And then there's some people that are still in at very deep average costs. They bought these things at, maybe not this poor sap, but, some people have bought in very low on, like, I know the Lotus trains, because I bought a Lotus train at $24,000 and I sold it for 15 or something like that. That was a gut punch. But when I was watching Lotus price go up and down, there's people that bought it at a couple $100. And so even if they were like selling low relatively, they were still, making tens of thousands of dollars of profit. And Swagtrocity got a Cats at 2,200. I'd like to think that's a steal.
It's definitely a steal. I mean, even though he got it at 2,200 and it did touch that number a couple times, like Daniel, who's one of the regular listeners to our stream, he got one around 2,200.
The globals, man. The globals are working.
Yeah. I'm still a fan
of
that piece even at 4,000, even if it's worth half, just because it's a really sweet, it's just good art. And that's one of the things me and Malachi talk about a lot is like, you always have that fallback. If you buy pieces specifically that you love, you always have the fallback of, I don't care how much I paid, I just love the piece.
Well, here's the thing. When we're in the metaverse, right, and we walk into your virtual office and you got that Mad Dog Jones hanging up over your left shoulder, people are going to respect that. You know, people are going to respect that.
It's the same thing like on Twitter. Like people put the punks up as their profile. It gives them instant cred, right? You know,
it does.
You know, if you're going to dive into some Ponzui, you know it's okay because a crypto punk Twitter.
Yeah, he's in it.
He's in it. It must be legit. So
I want to show this L real quick. Sorry, and then we can start answering some questions. So like, my wife never wanted to buy an NFT before, and then like I'm trying to get her in. So like, this is candid. It's a little bit provocative, but like Liquid Summer, she's like, I'm going to enter this auction.
Is that Slime Sunday?
Yeah, and it's the Slime Sunday Playboy. Yeah, but look at this. Look at this. Today, someone's just like, bam, got to pay a credit card. I'm going to take that. Like, that makes no sense. Like, and that's the thing, like, to your point, I actually, like, it's really resonating with me about the fungible, non-fungible aspect. Like, if I own an open edition, even if, or even a, a drawing 1 out of 100, like other people can like the future price of this, it could be a blip and like the future price could stay around retail, or this person could have set the market and now it might not recover, because we've all seen it I don't know about y'all, but for a while I had my site-wide activity up and a separate monitor, and I'm just like, the second something sells cheap, I'm putting up an open
a low ball global and say,
global offer for like half of that. And
well, here's the thing to consider. Do you think the average person knows how to trade in an illiquid market? Right? Like the average, like I can give you a perfect example. I bought a Jose Delbo in February, his modern edition, where it's like the Last Supper of all of the, superheroes. And I bought it I bought it for $800 or something like that. And as soon as I get it, I like list it for $1,200. And no one buys. And so I listed for like $1,150. Then I listed for $11. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, no one's gonna buy this thing. And I end up selling and I make like $100 profit. Fast forward a month later, it's selling for $8,000. I look like a complete idiot. But that was the first time I ever traded in a liquid asset. And it scared the shit out of me that I couldn't get an instant fill on it. You know what I mean? Versus on the stock market, I'm trading the stock, it's down by 10%. I want to get out. I can hit that sell button and walk away. Yeah. So I think there's so many people out there that don't understand how to trade in a liquid market, and that because it's a liquid, the price volatility can be insane and it scares people. And so they start dumping to globals. That's why Nifty Gateway, they need to start allowing globals off of like order balances. I mean, I don't know if they had done that, or account balances, if they had done that 2 months ago, I don't know how much of a difference it would make, but it will at least have, close the gap a little bit.
They are working on that a little bit. Let's do a quick pivot to the Nifty Gateway updates in the Discord today. So one of the things that they said that they were going to be releasing soon is, one of the most annoying things about Nifty Gateway is you go and look on the market stats tab and it shows highest offer. That's actually the highest offer, including all specific offers people have made for specific numbers. So it's basically a useless number for you, and it throws people off, because if you go in there and you see highest offer is $15,000 for some piece that is really worth $2,000, well then you'll be like, oh well, I'm not even going to bother trying to buy this because there's people offering $15K for it, and I don't have that kind of money.
So they're like creating a way to make it easier now for people to like see global opportunity to like throw in a global.
Now they're changing that field to be highest active global offer.
Global, yeah, because that always used to trip me up when it was like on a single edition, the offer.
It does suck that Nifty Apps has been kind of providing this exact functionality for
because they have like the first highest, second highest, or
so it's kind of it would have been nice if they had this. I don't know why they went with highest overall offer in the first place, because like you said, the number one is completely different than the other 99 in a set of 100. And so if you're always showing the offer on the number one, if there is a big offer on number one out there, then you're just basically distorting the market for no reason, to no benefit of anyone involved. So that's one.
The whole concept of offers is wild too, because it creates such this like effect of like, should I take this or should I not take this? Like when I was flipping some Meebits, like right after the launch, I got this like a 3D glasses one, and I had an offer for like, 5 Ethereum and didn't take it. Then I get one for 5.5, and I'm thinking about it. And I go out to smoke in my garage, and I'm chilling there thinking. I come in, and the guy pulled the global, even though it was for like 24 hours. I literally lay down on the carpet, and I was like, no, like I'm done. Like I'm wrecked, right? Like I just lost all this money. And then I wake up the next morning, it's like another global, and I like snap by it. But there's an interesting psychology to the effect of globals, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
if there's only one global out there and someone's nervous, right, what are the chances that they probably take it? Pretty high.
check this out. Pull up the history on this one. So I own this particular politics and bullshit, and back in the peak, somebody offered me 484 ETH for it.
Oh my gosh.
They offered it via the Nifty Gateway Omnibus, because all of your pieces on Nifty Gateway show up in the Nifty Gateway Omnibus.
Yep.
So at the height of Ethereum, that would have been worth something like, over $2 million for this particular one. Granted, it's the number one in that edition, so it should be worth more than the others. But yeah, I posted that on the rejected offers tab of the Beeple forum. I don't think anybody has me beat on a passed up offer. But yeah, I didn't even know about it.
We all have our dinks. I got super. I don't know if you guys remember when we used to be able to meme in the Nifty Gateway general chat, and there was the lavish memes, and they were the funniest things in the world. They were so funny, and everyone was pumping lavish. And I got drunk with my buddy one night. I bought so much beige stuff, like all of the rare stuff. I probably took a collective $10,000 hit on that one, like when I sold out. But like at the time, it was the smartest idea in the world. The lavish memes were going. We're like, she's dating fuck render. Like the collabs are going to be through the roof. This is nothing but up.
Nice. Yeah, there's kind of the whole meme,
but not
thing.
480 ETH.
Yeah, but
and
now we know that F Render's married and she also makes art.
Oh shit! Hey, French Canadians, they live a different culture. I'm not.
Don't worry, 480 ETH. That's a hell of an offer, man.
I know.
Dude, what if ETH goes to like
Don't say
100K a piece?
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I have to do it.
He doesn't have enough beer in the house.
Oh god.
In full disclosure, I told him to take less.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
there was probably going to be another offer I was going to get via cash, but I told Malachi I picked a number in my head, and at the time that wouldn't have hit it. But at 4,500, it well past it.
Miller, when you saw that offer for 484 ETH, in your mind, did you immediately convert that to USD, and that's why you declined it, or did you think about the future value?
No, I never saw it while it was active because it was under the omnibus. Like this guy is on Twitter, so I could have reached out to him. I found the guy on Twitter, and so I could have reached out to him and said, "Hey, give me a day. I'll transfer it off Nifty Gateway, and you can buy it." But at the time, I think ETH was like 1,800 or something, and that was like I was hoping for 1,000 ETH on it. So that was under, but I was a little bit more foolish on my understanding of ETH at the time. Like now, I feel like, especially with the ETH 2.0 merge coming, like it's going to create a liquidity crisis on ETH that I think, again, not financial advice, personal opinion, but I think it's going to cause ETH to just go, and we talked about this before, but a parabolic ETH situation. So, I mean, if I really thought deeper about that,
people like think of everything in Ethereum, and I know people like that, and certain people convert everything to USD. Like that's why I really like that question. And it's interesting how different markets look at them differently. Like you can see markets that are like definitely pegged to USD, like land, like Decentraland and Sandbox Land is very much pegged to US dollars. But then, things like CryptoPunks maybe are much more tied to Ethereum. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, Foundation doesn't even, it's Ethereum. I mean, a bunch of the markets are Ethereum only, so.
Yeah, and I'm nervous to I'm more likely to buy on Maker's Place and Nifty Gateway than I am on Foundation and the others because I'm much more protective of my Ethereum than I am my USD because like
it's just the psychological effect of spending a deflationary currency versus an inflationary currency.
Yeah, you sell it, you trade for USD, you're not like, oh, what if USD goes up by like 40%? Yeah. But you know, I bought a ton of sandbox land at $1,600, you know, and just like in my head, like doing the math, if I sold it for 3,000 and then bought the sandbox land, and you know, it would be way more ahead.
Yeah, that's the hard thing about ETH. And we tried to do an article on NFTCulture.com to try to help artists like understand this, because like one of the artists, I'm not going to say him just because I was helping him with some stuff and he might not want this public, but I was helping an artist with some pricing concepts, and he was like, he wanted to do a particular price, and I'm like, and this was while we were still on the upswing, and even, I mean, we'll eventually be back on an upswing too, so I feel like it still applies, but he was like, I want to price this stuff at 1 ETH, and I'm like, so today that looks like $3,000 or whatever it was at the time. But keep in mind that, you know, as ETH continues to traject up, you're pricing your piece out, you're pricing your prospective buyers out of the market of that piece.
Yeah.
So really what you need to do is try to see like, okay, would I actually have buyers for this at, like, how long is it going to take for me to sell it at 1 ETH? And by the time enough people have seen the piece for there to be a prospective buyer, is that buyer still going to be able to afford? So I personally preach, like, artists, if they're going to be selling in ETH denominated on ETH denominated marketplaces, they need to be really, really aggressive with their pricing.
Like, well, if they're getting secondary sale commissions as well, they need to create positive price upswings. Like, would Bored Ape Yacht Club be a thing right now if they priced them all at 1 Ethereum? No, I would argue no, because no one would be able to get in. But so many people were able to get in at 0.0 whatever, and now look at the floor. Yeah, now look at the floor.
What is the floor? I haven't seen it.
0.4.
Now did I make a mistake?
Like you made a mistake. The floor is 0.4. You could have bought 2. You could have had a free. You could have bought 10, and like the.
Hey, do you still have that one you were going to sell me? I think it was like you were going to give me for 0.3. You still got that one?
I sold it for 0.6, and now I got to still go. It's you know, I only have a couple minutes left today, but Nick, thank you. You're welcome anytime. First off,
wait, hold on. Before Nick goes, man, I want to hear top 3. I want to hear top 3 in terms of value for art pieces. Y'all did this segment, I think, last time, and everybody answered. I'm curious what Nick's top 3 anything pieces are. If you could buy, what do you buy?
Are we just talking Nifty Gateway, or are we talking?
No, open. Anything.
So there's you can answer it in 2 different ways. You can say the piece. So like, I want a Politics is BS, or you can say I want to invest in this artist. And I think based on your sophistication, you probably have pieces in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that my top 3 pieces would be a Dead Ramen. I really love Ness graphics. I feel like he's a sort of like a Mad Dog Jones with the cyberpunky futuristic stuff that just gets me going. And then they're just to, you know, change things up a little bit. I'm blanking on her name. She did a Nifty Gateway drop, which is really big on super rare. I'm saying she. I'm assuming, but like Annabelle something. Let me see. Okay. Annabelle Siconoophilie. She did the Utopia versus Dystopia.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and then she has a ton of pieces on super rare. They go for like 15K a pop, but I really love that futuristic, like sci-fi look. So I would do Mad Dog Jones, probably Dead Ramen, a Ness graphics, and then let me try not to butcher this name. Annabelle Siconoophilie. Those would be my top 3. And then if we're just talking projects, I would probably do Meebits. I'm so bullish on them right now. Meebits, Sandbox Land, and something else.
What's floor on Meebits right now? Is it still 0.75-ish?
Yeah, but those are for like the, you know, not so maybe desirable ones. I think that, like, you know, the floor is actually getting pretty impressive there. I'd say, like, you know, you could get one that like looks like you maybe for like, you know, 1.5 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really quickly, just out of respect, I want to make sure, is anyone into Polygon?
Matic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Platform? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Man, because so Zed runs on there, and now like that really showed me like the power of it, especially for like utility-based NFTs, because like I enter my horses into races and the fees are pretty much free.
Nothing.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I'm like, this is where the stuff is going to get built. Like 2 years from now, a year from now, everything will be running on it. It's so cheap.
What about
Is
him?
it a separate chain, or is it a? I mean, is it a separate coin, or is it?
Matic, yeah, that's the proof of stake coin for Matic.
Yeah. So like I bought some Matic down at like 40 cents and like 80 cents. Those guys, I sold it way too early though.
Oh, there's all these proof of stake. There's all these proof of stake coins besides.
Well, what I liked about this is this actually has, so Aave is on there. So like the lending protocol is on there. Like Sushi's on there now. And then like as soon as I used Zed Run and like actually saw an NFT run on it versus it just being like hypothetical, that's when like I got sold on it, because I was like, I'm racing horses. You're like signing for free. You're entering the horse race. It's costing you like, you enter for like, you can enter a horse race for $2.74. Like you can't do that on Ethereum. It's impossible to make any sort of thing like that for $2.74. So like as soon as I started doing Zed Run horse racing on Matic, I was like, okay, this is for real.
By the way, Villery, this is where Avagachi is at. It's actually on Polygon Matic.
But okay, so here was my actual question there is, why are people so bullish on Cardano, which doesn't even have smart contracts?
Great marketing. All my newbie friends love Cardano.
But
they're like, it's going to take over Ethereum. I'm like, have you used Ethereum? They're like, no, but it's going to take over Ethereum. Okay.
So like you got, okay, so if Polygon is a fully built out proof of stake, you have Tezos, which me and Malachi like a lot, which is fully built. I mean, I think it's fully built out. You can do smart contracts and everything with it. Like how many POS coins do we need? And the ones that aren't even like hitting the important parts of their milestones yet, their roadmaps yet, why do they still have so much value? That's like I just don't understand the question.
Yeah, I would think Polygon has a strong chance of winning. I mean, it went from, I think it was like a 60th coin or something like that. So it's like, top 15 now. Like it's
Polygon.
Hey, I'm sorry. I need to hop in here because I want to be married next week. And why don't we do this? Why don't we have like a technical Tuesday or something where, Nick, we'd love to have you back as often as you would. If there's a night next week, you can hop back on, or even next Friday, we'd love to have you. I'd love to start debating Tezos versus Matic versus Ethereum. I mean, John knows all the stuff, and thank you, John, for being back. I know you needed a little break. I'm so happy to see your face, but I hate to end it because I think like this is a super deep conversation.
It was a great conversation, though. I had a blast with you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah,
this is awesome. Villery or Mike, you got anything else?
Mal, can I ask one more question before Nick pops off? I want to know if somebody's sitting with an Into the Ether on crypto Twitter as their profile picture, do they get instant cred in DeFi and coins to invest in your mind?
I think if they have a CryptoPunk, it's probably better, but I think Into the Ether, I think Into the Ether is still impressive. Like an OG is going to see that and have respect. That you'd have twice as much respect if people didn't sell all this Ethereum.
He bought it back.
Yes. All right.
He reinvested it.
Sure he did. Yeah, when he buy it at 4,000, he got wrecked twice.
He got wrecked twice. Yeah, the 69 million would be worth like 150, and then it would have been worth 50, and not
selling at 1,600, bought the top.
Feels like me,
right? Yeah,
at a millionth of the scale.
Same.
All right.
Great talking to you all.
Fun. Hey, thanks everybody. We'll bring Nick back, and we'll be back on. We're starting to do this a lot more regularly, so thank you everyone for sticking around. Everyone who I said I'd send an NFT to, I got your emails, and I will do it as soon as gas fees allot. So thank you so much. We'll talk to y'all soon. Take care.